Hello, Nintendo!
Hello and welcome to episode 36 of Hello Nintendo. I am the Scottish Lion, aka Alec, and today I am joined by Iwata Fan, aka Michael. How are you?
Doing well, how about you?
I'm doing good, and I'm also joined by Catch Up the Duck, aka Sam. How are you doing today?
I'm good, what's quacking?
So today we are going to be discussing a celebration of everything Nintendo, from Super Smash Bros. Direct, which just happened earlier this week, of recording, to WarioWare Gold, and then the Pokemon Let's Go trailer showing Jesse and James. But first off, we're going to talk a little bit about what we have been playing. So let's get started with you, Michael. What have you been playing?
Well, to be honest, over the last month, I have not gamed very much. I did buy a bunch of indie games on sale through the Switch, though, and so the latest one I bought was called Ink, and what it is it's a platformer where you can't see anything until you jump to it. So every time you jump, ink splatters out of your character, which is simply a white box. And the ink, very colorful ink, kind of splashes all over the place and helps you see where you should go next. So it's a bit of a tactical platformer, some people might call it. And it's a fun game, but that's really what I've been playing a little bit of whenever I get the chance.
If you could give ink a color to describe it overall, with red being bad to yellow being bright and sunny, what would you rate the game in color?
Oh, the color rating is yellow. It's actually super good. If there's anything to complain about, it's that the controls are a little bit slippery, so when you jump further than you might be used to otherwise, but it's definitely intentional on the game designer's side of things, so maybe it's just a matter of getting used to those controls, because they're not that bad. It's just, if you're used to, for instance, Mario 2D platformer physics, this is just a bit more than that, a little more slippery.
Sounds like a lot of fun. There definitely are some good indie games out there for the Switch that are hidden gems. I haven't been playing a whole lot either. I've played a little bit of Octopath Traveler. I'm about 5 hours into the game, and I could talk a lot about it, but I'm going to save that for another time. So far, it's a very rewarding experience, and I love the diversity of characters, and I find the mechanics a really fresh take on the Final Fantasy VI era of RPGs. I've also been playing a little bit of Banjo and Kazooie. That was the first game I played in about 2 weeks last night, and it's hard. I struggle with platformers, but it's fun. So Sam, let's go to you. What have you been playing recently?
I've been deep diving into the remake of Final Fantasy XII, which just came out for PC. I say just came out. It came out sometime this year. It's really good. Final Fantasy XII, I had it on the PlayStation 2, and it was the first game I ever lost to a corrupted memory card, and it broke my heart. Like, literally over 90 hours into the game. I don't know how far I was from the end, but 90 hours seems a lot. It really broke my heart, and I never went back to it. I could never go through that again just to get to the end. But now it's got a nice lick of paint, and the best part about it is it's got a fast forward function in this title. You just set the game speeds to 2 times or 4 times, which makes grinding so easy. Just skipping the cutscenes that I've seen before. It's really good. Good that I can finally knock this part of my gaming shame back off, that I had to quit so close to the end. But now I'm going back, and I am going to beat it. As someone who's played a grand total of 1 Final Fantasy, it is the best Final Fantasy game. It's so good. It was really underappreciated at the time, I remember. Sort of familiar with the Final Fantasy series. I'm not completely alien to it. When I say I've only played Final Fantasy XII, I mean I've only made significant progress in 12. I've played 7, played the Game Boy Advance remake of the first one, and I played a bit of a DS remake of, I want to say, 4. These are all the Japanese numbers, by the way. I don't even want to touch that debate. But this one has got a really interesting mechanic where you pre-program basically, what you want your character to do in different situations. So the most obvious one is you tell your character that if there's an enemy nearby, attack it. And then you can get more in depth. So you go, actually, if there's a few enemies nearby, attack the one with the lowest HP left. And you can tell your other character to be on the lookout for other characters that drop below 50% HP, and then you heal them. Or look out for characters that have vulnerability to fire, and then it'll use a fire spell. So if you have carefully considered all your options before battle, then you just sit back and watch them do everything for you, which is not boring. It's really, really satisfying. You feel extremely clever when you've accounted for a scenario that the game throws at you, and you go into a full-on panic in a really exciting, fun way when an enemy breaks through your programming to what you get. It's a really fun game. I really like the story as well. I think people said it was a bit too political compared to other Final Fantasies, but I can't compare it. I'm not familiar enough. But it's a really good world. I just love exploring it. It's really, really fun. I've had a lot of fun playing this remake.
How often do you have to readjust in the middle of battle, or how often do you get caught off guard by, let's say you walk into a scenario and then you realize that you've programmed your characters wrong? How often do you have to readjust?
Well, there's a drip feed of what it unlocks you, and you still gain abilities at the same rate as you do in a typical RPG. So I don't have all the magics to fight certain creatures. I can't be too wasteful on potions and things, although it seems like it's a higher MP. You got a higher max MP than most typical RPGs, which I like. It feels quite generous. I don't know if that's unusual or not. But yeah, because you're always unlocking abilities and new techniques, I'd say basically every level, every dungeon or so, you would go and have a look in it and readjust.
I haven't played Final Fantasy XII. I played a demo a couple years ago when it was re-released for the PS4, and that's about it. But I remember, so in Final Fantasy VI, you do have to resource manage your magic, your MP, but in games like Octopath Traveler and Final Fantasy XII, it's very generous with how much they give you, and it can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing.
I think it's more fun that way. The enemies seem to have quite high health bars, but that's not a chore like it is in other RPGs where I'm mashing A to get through the battle, because I don't need to mash anything, ideally, if I've been smart enough, and I can fast forward it as well. So them having high health bars opens it up to me being more willing to use magic, which is something I'm normally scared of using MP in other games, and I hate using elixirs. I'm always just like, no, I'll push through to the inn or the refresh crystal or whatever it is. I don't want to use my items. I'm okay with using items in this game. I don't know, it takes a lot of the things I don't like about RPGs out, and it trusts me to do things my way.
So to tie this in, one last question, and to tie this in with Octopath Traveler, eventually I know there's going to be a point where I hit the game where I can kind of combine a white mage with a little bit of a blue mage or red mage take on the character, where because MP is so generous, it does allow you to experiment more with that. Can you do that in Final Fantasy XII with your characters?
I don't know what on earth you just meant. What, a white mage, a blue mage? Those things are meaningless to me.
Sorry. So like white mage is your typical healer. Blue mage is a little bit of your. I don't know how to describe a blue mage. Kind of like that. They would be like the tricky one. They're like
so like status effects rather than.
Yes. Yeah. A little bit of more of a status effects, a little bit of a gambler. You don't know if they're always going to work. And then the red mage is a bit of your balance. They do have a little bit of black magic, but they also are a healer.
So the game lets you choose. There's 12 different jobs that you can give your 6 party members, and you can give them 2 each, and you can give any character any job, but you can't change it later. So I looked up what the canon version, I guess, is the one that suits their role story-wise, rather than... I didn't want to cheat and just choose the one that matches their stats the best. So I just looked up the ones that matches their role in the fiction the best. And there's a red mage, a white mage, and a black mage. So any character can take those roles, and any character can learn any type of magic if that's what you want.
Let's go to our next topic of discussion, which is Pokemon Let's Go. A Wada fan, Michael, take us away.
Well, Pokemon Let's Go has been the subject of great controversy recently because so many fans are super excited to finally go back to Kanto, and so many other people are saying, well, now they're making Pokemon even easier, but I personally am super excited about this game because, you know what, I think Pokemon should be able to appeal to all different sorts of players, and so I think this is a great way to tie in the success of Pokemon Go with the success of the Switch in a way that I think is pretty exciting. Recently, we got to see a little bit more about the game, and that was in the form of a trailer. The initial trailers showed us the initial towns in the game, Pallet Town, and you saw your character battling Brock and just doing the very early portions of the game. But now this trailer shows us the SS Anne, as well as a little bit of Cerulean City. Team Rocket, Jesse and James are in this game as well, and it showed us even that Mega Evolutions are going to make their way into the game as well, at least in the form of Mega versions of the starters' final evolutions, so Venusaur, Blastoise, and Charizard. What do you guys think of the trailer? I thought it was pretty exciting. Alec, what are your thoughts?
So my first thoughts turned direct because of Jesse and James and them being my favorite characters because of the anime, that it turned me directly towards thinking of the Pokemon anime. The first season, I don't watch it, but I've seen the first season, and I'm hoping that this game is going to be, and this gets into a little bit of discussion of what makes a game good, what makes a game rewarding to play. This is going to be an easier game, but I don't think that the reward for experiencing this game is going to be tied to the challenge it gives. I don't even know if that's what Pokemon should be doing in the main series anyway. I think the reward is going to be being able to explore a version of the heart of Pokemon. It's a reimagination and HD graphics of exploring the first Pokemon series. I think it's meant to be oriented a little bit towards a younger audience, and its reward for playing is going to be different than the reward you get for playing a main series Pokemon game. I think Pokemon needs a little bit of I think they need to challenge themselves by not trying to tie themselves to the battle system to make a game good.
No, I agree. The thing about trying to play Gen 1 Pokemon today is if you went back to the original Game Boy games, you would find them to be somewhat difficult, I think. Even I personally do. And that's the problem with young players trying to go back. They have the choice of the real Generation 1 games, which are, by today's standards, more difficult. And that's how it was for us, too. If we played Pokemon's first games, Red, Blue, and Yellow, as kids, well, games from the early 80s and 70s were needlessly difficult for us as well, probably. Especially if they were advanced enough, like in the NES era. And I think that's true of younger players today. In order to access these older games, it's a big struggle. Now, of course, Generation 1 Pokemon did get remade during Generation 3, Ruby, Sapphire. Though even I played through the remakes a year ago, and I thought they were still pretty hard. And so this is a really unique way to get people into that generation of Pokemon, specifically like the world of Kanto and of actually catching and battling with Pokemon, essentially having what at least could be called a full Pokemon experience in the form of a game that is really lighter in lighter as an experience, but I think in a way that maximizes the fun elements. So I think they've struck a careful balance, actually. I don't think they've gone too far. I think they're just trying to reach out to new players who haven't experienced Pokemon before. What do you think, Sam?
I think you two are crazy. I think this game looks boring. There's lots of really neat things I like about it, but the actual game itself doesn't look like it's going to be that interesting to me. I love the Pokemon world. I'd love the chance to sit back and take it a bit easier, but I don't know how long that's going to hold my attention. I don't know if I'm going to get my fill by... I've beat Brock. There's a bunch of Zubat coming up. I don't know if I think I'm done now. You know how it is? Especially when a lot of the cooler Pokemon are near the end. Although you get the starters this time spread out throughout the middle of the game. So that's a bit more interesting. But without the battle system... It's a really good battle system. It's really fun. I want them to push into that. And throwing a Pokeball just makes the Pokemon seem a bit more pathetic to me. I think it was implied in Sun and Moon that the Pokemon pick fights with trainers because they want to be cool. But they also want to put up a fight. They also want to put up a challenge. They want to be... They're jealous. Pokemon are jealous of trained Pokemon and stuff like that. That just seems like it's been thrown out the window with this game.
Yeah, they've always skirted that issue briefly, but they've never really fully explained it in a comprehensive way that's super obvious to players. So yeah, it'll be interesting how they treat that in this game exactly. I do think that they want to emphasize the ability to actually throw your Pokeball, even with that Pokeball controller, which honestly for me is a dream come true. So I love it. I realize that this isn't full on mainline Pokemon where you have the full battle system with the turn-based RPG elements to their fullest extent. But, not every single player likes that. And I was thinking about this the other day. There's a lot of great discussions on our Nintendo about this, and the way I thought about it was turn-based RPGs are not really a mainline genre. I think you can say racing games are, action-adventure games are, and probably fighting games at least like Smash, but turn-based RPGs haven't been popular on that mass scale for a long time, arguably since Generation 1 Pokemon. And that's probably why all the other Pokemon games, despite selling super well in each generation, they never actually sold as much as they did in the first generation. So I think what's happening here is the Pokemon Company and Nintendo are trying to find out if they can recapture that same audience and perhaps even achieve those same level of sales numbers, which I think would be good because it would mean that they would have found ways to get people playing Pokemon again. And it's one of those franchises or intellectual properties that everyone seems to at least marginally be aware of, and a lot of people love it. But not a lot of those people who say they like or love Pokemon end up playing any of the games beyond Pokemon Go. So I feel like this will be a great bridge, and I do hope that this also means for the main series that they'll try avoiding making those games easier, because the problem with that series is it's gotten very easy over time, and I don't know if that has anything to do with me getting older and perhaps getting better at games, but it feels like it's just objectively easier.
Do you really think so? Do you really think they're easier?
I do, and it's not necessarily because you have to make it hard on yourself. Whereas in the first generation, for instance, it was just hard and there was no escape. But with this game, you get experience all. You can be using berries profusely to help with your Pokemon very early on, just all sorts of tools in your belt to make this an extremely easy experience. Even the feature where I forget what it's actually called in Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but in X and Y it was called Pokemon Ami Ami, where you would brush your Pokemon's hair, you would pet it, you would feed it good treats, and that makes it even better in battles. You have all these methods of making the game extremely easy. You have to actively avoid
Does it
them.
actually make it easier for the casual player, though? Because there's so many features that isn't it just a bit overwhelming for the new player? For people like us who've grown up with Pokemon, we've had these features like drip fed to us throughout loads of generations. But somebody who's starting the series with Sun and Moon is getting bombarded with features left and right. They don't know which ones they should prioritize, so they probably just play the base game, I would imagine is what happens. They don't touch the berries, they don't touch the Pokemon training or the Pokemon and me. They might realize that petting their Pokemon will get it to occasionally dodge an attack, which I think is quite a cute feature. But yeah, it does make it easier, I suppose. I don't think anybody's EV training, just because it's easier to EV train in Sun and Moon than it was in Gen 3. I don't think that the average player is doing that.
Yeah, that's debatable. I think there are actually base game elements that in themselves have become easier. So in Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, I think, for instance, leveling a low-level character up, it's just plain faster, even without experience and all that. I think the system has been made somewhat easier. I could be wrong on that, but to me, even if I go back to Gen 1 now, and I do every other year at least try and dabble, it's harder for me than it is to start with one of the more recent games like XY, Sun Moon, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon.
I guess the other argument I would have is it necessarily got easier, that it's got fairer. And Gen 1, just by the limitations of the game... Yeah, it was unfair, but a lot of that was the limitations of the Game Boy. Not that they tried to design it, but that it was bad to design. It was very good design, but unfortunately, to create the tutorials and the space needed the player to learn all of the mechanics was very difficult in that time. So there was that trainer school. But there's a text limit. There's only so much space they have on the cartridge, so they have to give very quick explanations of everything and just hope you understand. And that's not fair. So a lot of people would supplement their game with a strategy guide, and that was back in the era where there was Nintendo Powers, there was Nintendo magazines, there were lots and lots of avenues for you to learn how to play the game. And because Pokemon was a phenomenon from day one, they were there. They didn't come later. They were always there. But I think Sun and Moon, a lot of the things they've done have just made it more fair. Not easier, but fairer.
Actually, I agree with that. That's another way to characterize it. And the funny thing is if you talk to really old school hardcore players who like to talk about IV and EV training, they will characterize it as being easier, as some sort of compromise on some sort of original configuration that was better objectively. And there are a lot of players with that mentality in mind. I think that is somewhat true to the extent that you get to all sorts of things faster. Your Pokemon are less likely to get knocked out in all sorts of scenarios. Like, for instance, one other base element that's gone now is poison. If your Pokemon gets poisoned, it doesn't get hurt every few steps anymore like it used to. So that's, for instance, another example. But they say, I liked that part too, and it's unfair that you won't let me have that anymore. So I think more hardcore players probably have a problem with it, but honestly it does definitely make it more accessible. So yeah, there are those advantages. I suppose it just depends on who you want to focus on. And of course, not every new player will appreciate these changes because they may be like some of the hardcore players. And of course, some of the hardcore players probably like these changes. So it's hard to make blanket statements.
The idea behind all the mechanics in Pokemon, the biggest thing that puts me off from going the extra step and taking the leap to competitive battling is just the huge time investment you have to make. I've never ever leveled any Pokemon to level 100. I don't think I ever will, honestly. Not without excessive rare candies, but I think they take a knock to your stats or something, so Pokemon you've leveled with rare candies wouldn't actually be competitive. If you erase a move, it's not easy to reobtain that move. This is gone now, but it used to be that if you use a TM on a Pokemon, you'd lose that TM. That feature is gone now, thank goodness. You'd be stuck with HMs for a while. So there's some improvements in those respects. But I think a lot of the interesting things about Pokemon are just hidden by time rather than skill necessarily.
Yeah, I think overall what we're seeing is pretty self-evident. They're trying to make Pokemon, at least Pokemon Let's Go, an experience that as many people as possible want to embark on. Where they failed with the turn-based format, the raw old school turn-based format, even with the minor changes they've made to make it more accessible to players or more fair, some might characterize it easy. It doesn't matter necessarily, but they're trying to capture even greater audience, and I think that's what we're going to see with Pokemon Let's Go and Pokemon Let's Go. So I'm hoping for the best with this, but it is interesting to hear even among us. Alec and I are looking forward to it for different reasons, and you see it as something that's kind of going to be a bit of a boring game, and I guess that's the world we live in, where not everyone's going to receive it the same, but I guess that also makes it more interesting. So Sam, I hear you want to talk to us about a new awesome game. Which one do you have in mind?
Welcome to Wario World!
WarioWare Gold came out a couple of weeks ago in the UK, and I think it came out this week in the US as well. I'm so excited that WarioWare is back. I thought this series was gone, honestly. Game & Wario didn't do that well on a console which already didn't do that well. And I was very surprised we didn't have one on 3DS earlier, but it's nice to have WarioWare as a swan song for the 3DS as opposed to the test pilot demo of all the features that the new console has that is the role it's played in recent years. I'm really excited that Wario is back. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I grew up with this game as a child, so when it first came out, I was already a major Nintendo fan, and this was a unique new game that was unlike anything else that had ever been released. You got to play all these micro games, so it was like you were buying 100 games in one little game. I forget exactly how many must have been in the very first one, but it was a lot, and they were all so much fun. They were already making references to old Nintendo series, and I don't know, it had an interesting story to it even that I thought was funny, and all these brand new characters in addition to Wario himself donning a new outfit. It was just a very interesting game, very, very appropriate for the time it came out, and so that's the one I played the vast majority of. I've dabbled in some others as well, and it's definitely one of my favorite series, despite not really dedicating a lot of time to the subsequent titles, but it's just an awesome, awesome game.
Alec, are you excited for Wario to be back?
Having never played a WarioWare game, I have no idea what to think. I won't be picking this game up, but can you explain the Wario, what's the appeal of WarioWare? Because it's micro games. But what's the difference between playing this or just playing a Mario Party?
Wait, what? Did you just say you're not... You first of all, you said you haven't played the series, and now you're saying you're not going to pick up this one? Why aren't you going to... Why?
I don't get the appeal of the series, I guess. I don't. So I like progression in my games personally. Yeah, I don't see I like Mario Party because then I can play with others in these crazy micro games. So is there a multiplayer function? Because it's on the 3DS, which has never had very good multiplayer.
WarioWare is not really... It has had multiplayer in the past, but that's not really the core appeal. It's a really fun, silly game. I guess the true challenge and the true progression is that you are able to cope with these really bizarre, outlandish, out of these world situations. It's a game that is constantly trying to make you break by causing you to laugh or surprise you or delight you with the weird absurdist humour that it throws at you. It's a really unique novel experience that isn't really anywhere else in games as far as I'm aware. And there is a progression of the challenge. It gets a lot harder towards the end. The games speed up and increase in difficulty each time. So each minigame has at least 3 difficulty levels that increases as you progress through the game. And obviously, some mini games are harder than others. There's a lot of challenge there for reaching high scores. It's a classic, pure arcade game as well. It distills every game mechanic from everything into like a core essence that can be just done with one button or with twisting or using the touch screen. It's really fun, and it's a nice. It's I'm so angry that you haven't played this series and you don't want to play this series. Just try the demo.
I really don't have an excuse for not trying the demo because I do love playing demos. I guess I also have been busy the past couple of weeks, so I didn't even really realize there's a full demo out.
Each game is 5 seconds. You can't be too busy to play 5 seconds. And then if you've got time, play the next game. That's also 5 seconds.
I will definitely try it out. So, and then my other question would be, because I have no idea what these mini games are like, there's 300 of them. That is a lot of mini games to design for each one to be good. So, how do they go about, are all 300 games at least, or a majority I should say, at least, decent enough to keep your attention? Or do some of them get really tedious?
There's 300 of them to choose from, and you're probably not going to have the same reaction to all of them, but I promise you there's going to be a huge subset of that 300 that you're going to like. I remember even with the Game Boy Advance game, there were definitely a few micro games that I did not like all that much, but the nice thing was there was another 99 or so to choose from anyway, so you'll find your favorites. You'll find the ones you hate and want to avoid, and that's just the nature of the game. And I think basically whenever you have a game that has a variety of things to do, you'll definitely end up choosing your favorites. But yeah, I would say overall, the majority of the games are certainly fun for most people. And the progression system, it kind of introduces you to segments, like certain segments of the micro games. So maybe you'll get a set of 20 that are kind of randomly thrown at you, and it'll be tied to a cutscene and a few story elements. So you don't get all these micro games thrown at you at once, at least in the story mode single player experience. That way you'll be able to get a feel for them as you go, and that will also provide you that progression structure. And yeah, hopefully, like I personally even find my favorite WarioWare characters, because each of the characters have their own associated micro games. So I of course like 9volt because he is the retro game dude, and I love retro Nintendo games. So yeah, you'll find your niche, I think, as you play.
So I did just write it down to go download and try out the demo, so I will do it, and next time we podcast, I'll come back with a review.
Brilliant. Excellent. Alright, Smash Bros. Time.
Super Smash Brothers!
So, of course, as we mentioned, the main event this week was the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Direct that Nintendo put out. And this was a full direct covering... It was actually a lot longer than I thought it would be. I was expecting a 10 to 15 minute, and I think it was around 26 minutes time in total. Anyway, we got Simon Belmont and his Echo Fighter Richter. We got King K. Rool after an incredible trolling cinematic that they did. And we also got Dark Samus and Chrom as Echo Fighters. These fighters also got the Dracula's Castle stage. We got to see a lot of new modes, which I'm personally now excited for. There's 103 stages, there's new Pokemon, there's new assist trophies, which we need to mention Cap'n as an assist trophy, how horrific that is. And there's also a lot of new items. And is the banana gun the new golden gun? So, what were your thoughts on the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Direct? This, for me personally, this really shifted my perspective from the E3 Direct, which I wasn't interested in at all. Sam, let's go with you. And I should note that this is going to be we're all very casual when it comes to Smash Brothers. So this is a casual celebration of Nintendo, not necessarily a focus on the fighting game element. So Sam, what were your thoughts?
I really loved this presentation, and I don't know why. I can't pinpoint what made it so different to the E3 presentation, but I love this one so much more. But I guess I have a much better idea of what this game is now. I guess the messaging of everyone is here for the E3 presentation didn't really do it for me, but this does. King K. Rool. Maybe let's be honest, it's just King K. Rool. I'm so excited for King K. Rool, but now this game is shot to the top of my wish list. I really enjoyed the presentation, really excited for the new characters. I'm really excited to revisit some of the old levels and see what's new, see what's surprising about this one.
Yeah, I think it was the cinematics that kept me, like, the way that it opened, and I knew as soon as you kind of got the rain, and because of some of the leaks that we heard, I knew that we were going to get Simon as soon as the trailer started. But that opening cinematic was a lot of fun, and it kind of introduced this element to the Direct that here is the more gimmicky side to Smash Bros. Ultimate opposed to the more serious side. Like, I don't care, I just mash buttons, to be honest. I don't try to reason what I'm doing when I'm playing Smash Brothers.
Yeah, Smash is really setting itself up to be this... Well, Nintendo as a whole are trying to stage themselves in this competitive scene with a lot of their games, and Smash is taking more of a direction back to Melee and its appreciation of the fighting game scene. They're trying to strike a better balance as opposed to the pure "this is for parties" ethos of Brawl. And yeah, this game is a celebration of that. It was so very silly. And that's what I love about Super Smash Bros. I love how silly it is. It's at the end of the day, it's the slapstick of Donkey Kong punching Pikachu in the face that makes Super Smash Bros. Such a fun game to me, not necessarily being the best at it.
Yeah, no, exactly. What other game are you going to get a cinematic for where Donkey Kong shoots Diddy Kong with a banana gun and sits there and, does his goofy celebration? Michael, what were your thoughts on the Direct?
Well, I thought it was amazing, honestly. I am not really a fighting game type of person. I'm not very good at fighting games. I don't necessarily care for the vast majority of them anyways. But Super Smash Bros. I care about, and the reason is because Nintendo has done something with the series that no other company has been able to do nearly as well. And that is reference an entire suite of different characters, IPs, and put it in one place and somehow make it work. And Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is going to be this huge compendium, not only of all the other games with their characters, of course, and many of the stages and tons of music, but it's just kind of like some sort of Nintendo encyclopedia of sorts. And it interests me in that way, especially because it's like this resource for you to take a close look at all these games that you've loved over the years. And the other thing was, the King K. Rool cinematic was amazing. It was very impressive. I'm actually quite surprised that Nintendo is having another studio make a Mario movie because they're really good at animation, and if they could manage to scale that into something even longer, I think they'd be really good at it. And so these cutscenes are amazing, all these new characters are amazing. I'm not a Castlevania guy yet. I think I'm gonna love Castlevania when I finally play it because I love every single Metroidvania I've ever played, but I super appreciate that they have Simon Belmont in there because he's been so heavily requested for such a long time. And then we have Richter in there as well, who, he strikes me as a less popular character, but perhaps he's also super well known. And so it's just a very exciting time to be a Smash player. I think to be a Nintendo fan and a Switch owner in general. I think this game is just going to be essential. Honestly, regarding your statements on Kapp'n as an assist trophy, I have to heartily disagree. Kapp'n is an amazing addition to Super Smash Bros., and I love Kapp'n. He's such a funny character, a bit of a jerk sometimes, but a bit of an interesting sailor type dude who has interesting songs, and I'd love to see what they do with him in the context of Super Smash Bros.
Oh no, I entirely agree that he's a great addition as an assist trophy. But if you just watch the way that he grabs, if you rewatch the direct, watch the way that he grabs Mario, and then look at Mario's face as he's dragged off screen in this bus, and it's just this nightmare. And if you go back into the Japanese folklore of what a kappa is, it's quite stunning. But no, I love the fact that he's in here because it's humorous, albeit a bit dark humor. So, speaking of this as a celebration of gaming and being an essential game for the Nintendo Switch, they introduced some new modes that you can play that are definitely going to be playable at parties. Instead of, doing your own tournament on paper now, we can now have a tournament mode. We also have Smashdown mode, which is basically the Iron Man version in Smash 4. We then have Sudden Death, where the camera zooms in on you for a dramatic effect. We have Squad Strike, which personally I'm looking forward to because that you can do 5-on-5 or 3-on-3. You each pick your fighters and then you use those in consecutive order, kind of like rock, paper, scissors. There's a lot of different options that can really it can make anything interesting in the new items. So what are your thoughts on, out of all these different modes, what are you looking forward to most?
I'm definitely looking forward to putting my entire Switch in my purse just so I can listen to 28 hours of music as I do my shopping. I'm definitely going to be doing that. I love that they filmed a segment just to show off this woman listening to Smash music on her Switch. That seems so over the top to me.
Yeah, no one's gonna really do that except for maybe kids who don't own a phone yet for some reason, but it was super funny to see that.
It's going to be the biggest MP3 player that has ever been made in history.
No, but I agree. Having that big compendium of music, that's really cool, honestly. And I mean, Super Smash Bros. 4 already did that. It was not as well organized, so it's going to be a major change that they actually organize it by series, I think, because before, I think unless I'm missing something, it was literally just one big list and you just scrolled through it. And it was kind of shocking how in this day and age they had offered organization methods. So it'll be super cool to have that. I love trophies as well because, like I said, encyclopedia. But in terms of the actual gameplay, classic mode sounds interesting. I wonder if they're going to put story elements in it again, so it's an actual full-on adventure mode, because that's the biggest thing I think people have been missing. And it's certainly something I would like to see as a person who may not care so much about the intricacies of all the movesets and becoming just the ultimate player, but having some sort of story or progression element is helpful in the context of Super Smash Bros., so that would be really cool.
I think whatever you feel about Smash as a competitive fighter, or what's happened or whether Brawl is better than Melee, or whether Smash 4 is the best one, all that aside, I think by a long mile, Melee definitely had the best single player content. And I know it's not a single player game, and I know that its primary focus should never be single player content, but I would hope for a couple of features from Melee to come back. I really love the adventure mode in Melee. I don't need a Subspace Emissary, although I get the appeal. Just a little something extra for single player, just so I can practice without just playing CPUs, but practice the basics of the game.
One element that I love in games is a boss rush mode, and Do you think we're gonna see a boss rush mode with the some of the bosses that they showed off? Like I know Rathalos is just a assist trophy and an item, but do you think we're gonna see a boss rush mode from some of the Castlevania bosses? What do you think the hidden mode is gonna be?
I don't know. They certainly could with a bit more work. I remember, is it Yellow Devil from Mega Man? Was the boss was a boss on that stage? Not a boss, but a hazard. I just remember him pissing me off. I was not interested in him interrupting my fighting. But Ridley was cool in the last game, and I think that's a potential mode. Maybe without other fighters to worry about, I would be more excited about tackling these bosses. And yeah, that seems a more sensible approach. You know, this is a fight for a story or adventure type modes. You know, it's a fighting game, so let's keep it about fighting. Yeah, it's a platform fighter, but it should be about fighting primarily.
Yeah, I mean, I know that people were speculating with the castle stage that it appeared to be kind of a boss scenario. People are speculating you're going to be fighting some sort of boss in that context. I don't know whether that's going to end up being Death, who showed up in the Direct's cutscene, or what, but people are speculating that's going to be a thing. Like, as for the mode itself that they blurred out, people tried to piece it together what the word might say, and they think it says the word spirits, but I don't know. I think Nintendo wouldn't be so irresponsible as to lazily blur something out in such a way that if we just look super closely and think about it long enough, we're going to figure it out. I think they legitimately blurred it out to the point that it's impossible. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. If it is spirits mode, I don't know if that word tells me literally anything about it. So I don't know. A boss rush mode would be super cool to get into these intense battles because, you know, I think that is very relevant to a fighting game, and it would be a really unique way to further expand the Smash universe and what sort of modes are available within it. So I would be all for a boss mode for sure. As for spirits mode or whatever that green icon ends up being, who knows? I really have no real thoughts on it.
I guess the only argument against boss mode is that we're having so many bosses as playable fighters this time that it would be a little bit disappointing when Simon Belmont gets to go up against his arch nemesis Dracula, and Mario will go up against P.T. Piranha or something. That's not as exciting. I just prefer to see more bosses in Smash Bros. And I'm so glad that they're taking those steps to fill it out this time with bad guys. More bad guys in Smash Bros, please. I love Ridley. I love King K. Rool. Who else are we missing? Porky, Skull Kits. There's so much room for bad guys.
Yeah, Skull Kid. Everybody was talking about Waluigi earlier, and I hope we all forget about it because it's okay. I think I'll survive without Waluigi. But yeah, we do have a lot of big bosses, and I mean, even from the start. So we have Bowser, Ganondorf, and Ridley, K. Rool. Man, we really do have a lot of really cool bad guys.
The other thing I really love is all the Echo characters. I hope we get more Echo characters down the line. I'm getting satisfied with the original characters, but things like Dark Samus, I remember back in the Brawl era, I'm like, Metroid deserves more reps. I don't know how they're going to get Ridley to work, so I'm going to rule Ridley out, so that leaves, Dark Samus? But Dark Samus is just Samus again, so I wasn't that excited. But having Dark Samus as an echo of Samus is really exciting, genuinely. I'd be slightly put off if she was her own character, but Dark Samus makes so much sense. And I'd want to see loads more echoes. I can think of so many that I'd want. Let's bring Baby Bowser as a Bowser Jr. Echo, even though Bowser Jr. has already got all these Koopa things. Let's bring Baby Bowser in as well. Fill it with Echo characters now. That's fine. We've got enough different playstyles to last us forever. Let's get Dixie Kong as a Diddy Kong Echo. It doesn't need to fit perfectly. That's fine. I want to see these characters, even if their playstyles are slightly wrong. I'd love to see them represented like that.
To be honest, when the Donkey Kong segment came on, I was actually expecting Funky Kong.
Funky Kong needs to be a Donkey Kong echo. It's just Donkey Kong with glasses.
Yeah, since we've had so many Echo characters already, and since we were having new Funky mode, I thought we might see Funky show up as well. I mean, I did also expect K. Rool, because once you show them just relaxing like that, an enemy's coming. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if Funky Kong could be a good Echo fighter.
Are the Koopa Kids already Echo fighters?
They're just different costumes, I suppose. I don't know how they make the distinction, because they're certainly different animations, because they're different models, but their hitbox is the same. I don't know. I don't know how they make the distinction between what's an Echo fighter and what's another character, because who else is it? There's obviously different designs for Bayonetta, Clouds, Robin, Corrin, Wii Fit Trainer, and Captain Olimar, off the top of my head. Maybe more. Which, by the way, just chuck all the Pikmin captains in there. They all do exactly the same thing, so just give us them all.
I mean, with that in mind, they could make the entire Kong family fit in here. Funky Kong could be Donkey Kong, Dixie Kong could be Diddy Kong Echo Fighter. We could get Cranky Kong could be a Donkey Kong Echo Fighter.
Give me Animal Crossing characters and just make them Villagers so encompasses the series that there's not really room for a unique Animal Crossing character, to be honest. And that pains me to say. But with Echo Fighters, you can just chuck them all in.
Yeah, I mean, the next best thing, character-wise, for Animal Crossing is Isabelle, but the problem is Isabelle is hardly a fighter. You can make her mad in the game sometimes, I suppose, but for the most part, you don't even see her do anything that could suggest battling. And, the reason why I mention this at all is because I know that they consider those dynamics, which is why they went with the Link Between Worlds version of Zelda and not the Breath of the Wild, scholarly, studious Zelda. They do consider fit, it seems, in Animal Crossing. There's not a lot of fighting going on. I mean, Mr. Resetti, I guess, is kind of a violent dude, but he's a mole, and it's hard to imagine a mole running all around the stage when he should be burrowing underground and surprising people.
Isabelle would just hit people with a shovel and then plant
Yes,
trees
that'd be
underneath
good.
them.
Very morbid, but good. And then, yeah, I don't know. A lot of the things that Villager does is what I imagine Isabelle doing. I feel like it's all sort of taken, but maybe I'm just lacking imagination.
Yeah, she's perfect for an Echo. I was just going to say that I genuinely am excited to try Castlevania because of Smash Bros. And that's the power of Smash Bros. And I guess the power of Sakurai's respect and affection for these franchises is that I see that opening cinematic and I love how it blends it with the Nintendo universe, and it makes me take the leap to, I need to play a Castlevania. It's always been on my mind as one of the influential series, but when it hits Smash Brothers, then okay, this is an important series and you need to play it.
Because that's one of the things that this game does, is it doesn't put down any other series. It does a really good job of giving everybody a fair chance, and it puts together everybody into a fun community, and it's just that Nintendo joy, and that's something that it probably gets said a lot, but it should be said a lot. Thank you, Sakurai, for making this game that we all love and that we can all enjoy playing together.
Yeah, I agree.
Double agree.
Alright, well with that, thank you very much for listening along with us, and hopefully you will be playing Smash Brothers alongside us on December 7th when it releases. We're probably going to have a lot more Smash Brothers content coming in the podcast as we all get more characters, maybe, more stages, probably another direct or two, or at least part of upcoming directs. But with that, thank you for listening. Hello, Nintendo. Next time, we'll be discussing how all these villains are going to take down and make Nintendo doom.